Well, hello everybody and welcome back to a glorious afternoon, as is proven by I am finally barefoot back outside in my garden, which is about as happy as a bear can get. We have, with the help of shocks, turned the corn patch. I've got 4 basic rows set up to go here, and I figured I'd talk to y'all about basically how I'm doing my sisters or companion gardening this year. It's, as usual, not according to the book, but I don't really care because I think it'll work, so I'm going to try it. So what you see here are some of the seeds that I'm putting out here today. Weather's supposed to be good enough that we can carry on, and basically everything is supposed to mature in the same kind of time frame. So I'm going to start. I've got my corn that I'm going to stick in my main 4 rows. Then I've got these Painted Lady runner beans that I think are a pole bean, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to put those on the left-hand side of my corn bed. I've got these racer pumpkins. I put in a couple of those into my first mound in the Chaos Garden, but those are going to go in the spaces between the corn rows at the very front of all this. And then I have a variety of cucumbers here. I got straight 8s and some improved long green. I have a few pickling cukes, but they're kind of going to go by themselves at the end. And I've got these Summer Dance cucumbers that, again, they're one of the Vessie's varieties, but they're supposedly an all-female type, so it was suggested to me that I'm going to want to put other varieties with them so that there are some male flowers around. Any way you look at it, these are 3 good varieties of, a long English type cucumber. So in theory, this is like a 4 sisters garden, I guess, but most of the things here kind of, according to that book I picked up for a whopping 10 cents at the used store there, most of these things should grow well together, so I'm going to plant it out and, as always, hope for the best, right? So yeah, 4 rows, I got roughly 200 corn seeds. So give or take, I guess, 50 in each row here. Kind of my first objective. And I tell you, right about now, I am wishing we had an outside tap to the hose, because watering this with the can when I'm done is going to suck. But it's part of why I left such wide paths in between the rows. And actually, let's talk about that too before I get too much further into this. I've got, you can see my middle path here, an average of 2 to 3 feet between these rows, because that's kind of what I've noticed the farmers do with the field. I mean, apparently the average piece of equipment is set up at 30 inches between corn rows, which I think, if you think about it, when the plants bend over and blast that pollen around, because these are wind pollinated, not bee pollinated, right? So with the larger spacing, I think they got a better chance of hitting the rows beside them, whereas when you put them like only, say, 12 feet or 12 inches apart like I've tried before, they're just kind of bashing each other around, and all the pollen seems to stay on top of the plant without actually hitting any of those hairs and making me really nice mature cobs of corn. So since that's the goal, that's what I'm gonna go with. I figured I'd throw that information out there in case anybody finds it useful or, well, knows of something that I've got to change in that plan. But anyway, it's a little tiny plot of some 200 corn seeds. We'll see how many plants that actually turns into. But according to the back here, mid-May to June for planting corn, so I'm good. Time to get planting. So okay, today's first genuine lesson. 200 corn seeds sounds like a lot, but it doesn't look like a lot. So I'm going to try and separate this into roughly quarters, I guess, and plant accordingly. But I'm almost feeling like where I previously thought we didn't quite have enough space for corn, we might have way too much space for corn. Alright, it's going to be interesting. I guess I'll go this way and plant my way across instead of just doing rows, because I don't know how long it's going to hold out for. I mean, in theory, I should get rows of 50, but that just, I don't know. Does that look like 200 corn kernels to you people? I don't know. Well, guess it's time to get rowing. Alright, well, numbers guy that I am, I actually counted them out and there were 207. So if you guessed over, you guessed correct. I really didn't think there'd be 200 seeds there, but I'll show you how poorly spaced things are. The rows are neat, the spacing in the rows, not so much. So I've got a lot of glare on my screen here, but hopefully you can see little dots of corn seeds. With any luck, I'm getting this in the camera. Anyway, I'm going to water those, cover them up, or maybe do that in the other order. Cover them up and then water them and get carrying on with the rest of my planting. So yeah, pumpkins along the front here, in theory. Beans along the side there. And various cucumbers along the side here. Although the mouse melon will be its own star. Not quite sure where yet in the yard, but yes, carrying on. Alright, so in theory I've watered where the corn is. I'm sure I'll need to give it another good watering because we're supposed to be going into a heat spell, so I'll be doing lots of watering over the next few days, I'm sure. But, so I guess working from here, beans are next. Shox is doing something curious and fascinating in the front yard, but I don't mess with that yard. She even has to mow it herself. That yard is her problem. I get the gardens. Alright, so that right there represents the entirety of a 25-gram package of Painted Lady runner beans. But you know, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I should get a few plantings out of this. So, that'll be alright. Enough to stretch along the side anyway. I think you're supposed to do beans and corn and stuff in 3s, but you know what? We're doing these beans in 2s, because that just works today. Alright. Now, kind of divide up my little landscape here and see how she grows. Alright, so 2 by 2, I've got my little beans evenly-ish spaced out, just on this one side of this one row. I'm not putting them all the way through. I still want to be able to get at everything, right? But it goes all the way to the front, and then I'm putting pumpkins in those 3, but we'll get to that in a minute. So next up we have these Racer Plus PMR pumpkins. You know, first to mature in our trials, 12 to 14 pound round pumpkins, deep ribs. Sounds great, right? Maturity 80 days, so this is going to be one of the longest things going into the patch, but 80 days for a pumpkin is pretty darn good. And I believe I read somewhere, yeah, powdery mildew resistant, so that ought to be good. And semi-bush plant, right? Semi-bush plants, you see that? I've never grown any kind of bush pumpkin, so this ought to be interesting. Again, one of those moments, I'm not sure how well it's showing up in the camera, but I've raked up the middle portions to kind of create some mounds at the end of the, I guess it's the sister's garden this year. And I'm just going to plunk my pumpkin seeds into there. Since I went short with the 2 each for the beans, maybe I'll do 4 each for the pumpkins. I got 100 seeds in 3 spots to put them, so I'm certainly not going to run out there. Well, since some of these felt kind of flimsy, I went up to 6 per mound, but we'll just pile that up a little neater. Move next door. Rinse and repeat. And one more time. Feels like aerobics. And 1 more. And 2 more. 1 more. Just 3 more. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to water these in. And then I guess it's time to figure out what I'm going to do precisely with that cucumber row, because it's all fun and games until you actually come to doing it, and then you need a plan. Well, as happens so often here on the JT Bear channel, I was getting ready to do something and I realized that's probably not a good idea. According to the Vessies pack here, cucumbers require full sun, which would explain why I've had some problems with them in the past. And if I kind of pan over and look at what I'm setting up here, I maybe should not be putting them there, because as the corn grows, it's going to be blocking the light from these things. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to wait to plant the cucumbers. But this pack says they mature in 45 days. So I've got a little bit more time with these than I do with the stuff that's already in the ground. So, alright. So maybe what I'll do is I'll use the cucumbers as a drive to get this row finished, because there's still an awful lot of back-breaking effort involved in this. But you know what, I really like the look of that one there, and I think I'm going to really like the look of 3 of these things, so I'm going to go through the effort. You know, just why not? It's going to be a beautiful garden, it's going to be raised bed, it's going to have better drainage. There are so many positives that come out of this, it'll be so worth it in the long run. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe cucumbers here, because I don't really have anything tall in mind. I was thinking maybe the cabbages along this center, because I've got a 6-foot wide by 20-foot long protection cloth, basically. So even if I don't get the mound on this year, but just use it flat, I can plant the cabbages, I can protect them, and then they definitely won't be blocking the sun from cucumbers here. So you know what, maybe we will just make that the official plan. because now it is a proper Three Sisters garden with beans, squash, and corn. And then we've got, it'll be 2 mounds this year, and the carrots up front here, and everything's good. Of course the wind is picking up something fierce, but I want to show you really quickly. I don't know if you guys remember, I got this cherry tree a couple years back, thought I'd killed it, finally got it into the ground. Look at all the blossoms that are on this puppy. Very excited. Hope that wind's not too bad, but this thing is just covered with cherry blossoms. So based on what fresh cherries cost out here, if we even get half of these to produce, it basically covers the cost of the tree, right? That's why permaculture rocks. Anyway, I guess since I'm in kind of a shady spot and the wind has kind of died down for a minute, I'll do my closing clip. If you're still with me at this point, thank you so much for sticking around as I do all this. And if by any chance you're a new viewer and this is the first time you've caught my channel, I'm going to give you the same disclaimer that everybody else should know by now. This channel was never intended to be an educational thing. It is just some dude out in the garden sharing his experiences, looking for feedback. If you do learn something from it, great. But this is not an educational channel, and treating it as one may result in personal frustration. So bear that in mind as I wave to the bus driver going down the street, and I will see you guys in the next probably random video, because it's supposed to be some nice weather between now and Sunday. So yeah, I see more random in our future. Take care, everybody.